Hi guys, welcome to this video. This is my first video in quite a while, and I'm sorry for that. I've been pretty busy in real life, so, you know, these things happen. But anyway, back now. And today I am not really doing a tactical video as such, but I wanted to do another Musings video because, you know, I think about this kind of stuff a lot when you're thinking about the game, and it's important to know this kind of stuff is there. So today I'm talking about the devaluation of rules. But really, it could be the devaluation of anything in 40k. And what I basically mean is, these are special rules, abilities, statistics that a unit may have, that they have had for quite a while in their codex, or you know, something like an older edition or something like that, and they haven't got an up-to-date codex or anything like that. Pardon me. And yeah, they basically have these special rules, and you know, they haven't been updated for a while. And in some instances they have been updated recently, but you know, Games Workshop haven't changed things appropriately or that kind of thing. So these are the kind of things that units will have, that you pay extra for. For example, the simple one is Space Marine Scouts in comparison to Tactical Marines. Tactical Marines are pretty much the standard for a game, okay? And you know, you got those 4s across the board in the stats, and they have the basic rules. Now, a Space Marine Scout has a -1 to both the ballistic skill and weapon skill, so there are only 3s there. Other than that, they're identical in terms of statistics, and they have 1 point worse armor save. Okay, the difference in points is 3 points. So you know, you got 3 less things. You know, you 3 less points. Okay. Now on top of that, that would usually make direct sense, you know, logically, because you know, -3 things, -3 points makes sense. However, of course, in the real game, that's not how it works, because with a worse armor save, you know, there's a lot more weapons out there that ignore that armor save. You know, so you're getting your armor save less, that kind of thing. And of course, weapon skill 4 makes you weapon skill 3 makes you less defensive in assault. And of course, ballistic skill 3 means you're not hitting as well with weapons. Thus, close combat weapons and shooting weapons are slightly less worth it, because you're getting less points from it. So of course, the devaluation is more than just 3 points. Okay. Now, where the points go back up again is in their special rules, which are Infiltrate and Scout. Okay, which give them abilities above and beyond Tactical Marine. Okay. Now I know I'm just stating the obvious here, but I am getting to a point, and that point is you are paying points for those abilities. Okay. Now that's a very cheap scenario. In fact, that's one of the cheapest ways of getting Infiltrate and Scout together, in 40k for that matter. The thing is, these are abilities that are traditionally very powerful. So the reason I used Scouts as an example is because these are 2 of the best examples here. If you don't know, Infiltrate lets you set up more or less anywhere you want on the board after deployment has occurred, and Scout lets you redeploy within a certain range. So for Scouts on foot, that would be a 6-inch redeployment from wherever you've just put them. On top of that, they both let you outflank, which gives you more options, you know, if you put them in reserve. Okay, so here is where devaluation comes in. Okay, in the current state of the game, you have well, most people play about 1,500 point games. A lot of other places play 1,850, and you know, places I play, they'll play 2,000 points. So generally speaking, you're somewhere between there. Even at the lower end of the scale, because with the updated codexes and all the rules and things, points for units and models keep dropping. Which means to get to these numbers, you are getting more models on the table. Okay, makes sense. Games Workshop want to sell more models. The thing is, we've never really changed our points of games in pardon me. So we've never like dropped from 1500 points to 1300 points. You know, so we have the same amount of models. Instead, we're getting more and more models on the table each time. And especially at 2000 points, I'm noticing this a lot now. It's getting to the point quite easily where there isn't any room to deploy. Even at the start of the game, there's no room left in the deployment zone because the tables are the same size, deployment zones are the same size. You've just got more models as the additions keep going, and with every new codex release and every points drop that comes from it, you get more and more models there. No room to deploy. Okay. Now the infiltrate rule has some special restrictions, which are you cannot deploy within 12 inches of an enemy. Okay. If you are in line of sight of an enemy unit, then you have to deploy 18 inches away at minimum. So what this means is if any unit is in 18 inches of you, you can't deploy there unless you're behind cover and it's 12 inches. Okay. Now, if the enemy deployment zone is completely full of units, okay, all the way across, and you play in long table edges, you know, so they're all across there, completely deployed, okay, that means at best you can deploy 18 inches back. Okay, say there's no cover on this. Okay, 18 inches back. Okay, we only have a 24-inch gap between people anyway. So basically, all you're doing is getting an extra 6 inches forward. Okay, now with Scouts rule as well, you can move an extra 6 inches, so there's 12 inches between you. That's okay. But if it was just Infiltrate, you gain in 6 inches. Okay, now previously there were a lot more ways where, because we didn't have that many models on the table, there would be gaps in this deployment, which would mean that Infiltrate was slightly more powerful because sometimes you could get closer, other times you could easily get out of line of sight, and sometimes you could even get in the enemy deployment zone, you know, because they couldn't cover everything. Those options are gone at high points levels now, and you know, because of the way it is. What this basically means is, on the table, Infiltrate as a special rule is not as effective as it used to be. So that means it's been devalued over time because of the way the game has changed. However, the points cost for it has not changed, and it kind of makes sense at lower points levels where it's still more powerful, but at the higher points levels it is being devalued slightly. Excuse me. So these are things you need to consider when looking at the rules, especially in older codexes and that kind of thing. Like, Infiltrate may be good, but are you paying over the odds for it? You know, in the old days you used to make battle plans focused on Infiltrate, but now it's not so good. And especially, for instance, you can't charge in the entire first turn anymore. So even if you're going second, if you've infiltrated, that unit cannot charge. So if you're 6 inches forward anyway, okay, maybe you scout an extra 6 inches, and then you move 6 inches in turn 1. You're very close. You can shoot, but you can't do anything other than stand there. Otherwise, you've only got a 6-inch bonus anyway, and if you can't charge on the first turn, there's very few benefits from it. So it works for shooting things, but a 6-inch difference, you know, is it worth those points? That's what you have to ask yourself. Okay, and of course it's not useless. And as an example with terrain, because this also includes devaluing of the infiltrate rule, if you have line of sight blocking terrain, it's still a 12-inch bubble that you cannot enter, and if they're spread across the entire deployment zone, then you still can't get past those walls, basically, that barrier. So even if you're out of line of sight, generally speaking, you want to infiltrate forward. Going 6 inches is pointless. Your opponent knows that. So he knows where you're going to go, doesn't he? Because you're going to get as close as you can, or usually things that infiltrate want to be in cover anyway. So he'll be able to guess where you're going to be and deploy appropriately, thus making it pointless to deploy there. And of course, when you choose to infiltrate, you do it after your deployment, or like during deployment, sorry. So that means once you're committed to infiltrating, once you set this unit as infiltrating, they have to infiltrate, even if there's nowhere good to infiltrate. So a lot of the times I've seen it where infiltrators will just end up being put behind your own deployment zone lines anyway, because there's nowhere good to put them. So it's actually less of a benefit in many ways. They've ended up further back than they would have if they had just deployed normally. Excuse me. So these are things you need to consider, and also from his perspective, if he knows where you're going to deploy because of these cover things, he can actually manipulate that. And this is something you can take on yourself if someone is using infiltrate in this way against you. By deploying with a slight gap in certain places, a very small slight gap, he can create an area that, for instance, that is within range of you to infiltrate in. Maybe it's one place, and if he's got a good line of sight on that for weapons and that kind of thing, or he's got something nearby that can deal with those infiltrators, you know, he can basically influence you into deploying there. So you have to be careful of those kind of traps. But yeah, that's a way of using infiltrate against someone. So yeah, basically that's what I mean about infiltrate. So this applies to lots of old rules, and you know, they change over time. Like for instance, with 6th edition, and I think 5th edition as well, I don't remember. Deep strike, you can't charge from deep strike. You know, devalued, pretty simple. Things like outflanking, couldn't charge from that. You know, devalued. So even things like night vision in the current game, 7th edition from 6th edition. 6th edition night vision was, night fighting was very, very prominent, and as a result, anything that ignored night fighting, you know, anything like night vision and that kind of thing, was really, really useful. Okay, 7th edition, you may or may not get it. It's very rare that people even use night fighting anymore, you know, and even if they do, it's just stealth. So, you know, night vision's a lot less useful. It's been devalued. So a lot of the time you may not be paying for these points, especially in, these rules. So especially in the newer codexes, things seem to be a little more geared towards purely stats and that kind of thing. So think about it. Think about how the rules will actually apply, and whether you are paying above the odds, because there may be more efficiency in taking more bare bones squads without these special rules and employing them in a similar role. So yeah, that's basically it. Just something to think about there. And you know, basically be aware of. So hopefully this video has been useful. I will be making some tactical videos very soon. In fact, I'm just waiting for the camera to charge before I film them. So yeah, stay tuned for those, and thanks for watching. See you next time.